Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our valued speaker and audience. I am Pranjali Kaushik, and I'll be your host for this webinar titled The AI-ready FMCG Enterprise from Strategy to Execution, being hosted as a part of CT Cyber Charcha, a thought leadership series by Channel Technologies. Before we begin, a few housekeeping and notes. This session is being recorded. Your microphones will remain on mute during the discussion. Please use the Q&A box for any questions. We'll take them up during the Q&A session at the end. Polls will appear on your screen during the session. We'd request you to participate. I request all the participants to keep their mobile phones silent to avoid any distractions. Let's begin. Today, AI is no longer a futuristic ambition. It's a necessity. But as we have seen across industries, success with AI goes far beyond just adopting the latest tech. It demands alignment between business and IT, cultural readiness, data maturity, and execution at scale. So, how do FMCG enterprises actually make that leap from vision to value? That's the question we'll explore today. Let's dive into with our keynote. With me, I have Ms. Vijaya Ghosh, ex-Accenture data and AI leader. She's a seasoned data and AI expert with 20 plus years of experience driving business transformation in consumer industries. She has led impactful roles across startups and global tech firms like IBM, TCS, and Accenture. Her core expertise lies in AI assisted decision making and data driven strategy, AI led process reinvention and operational excellence, talent development, and cross functional leadership. But before we invite our speaker to begin, let's take a quick pause to launch our first poll for the session. You'll see the question on your screen now. Please do take a moment to participate. How would you describe your organization's current AI readiness? Last 10 seconds and we will close the poll. Thank you everyone for participating. So without further delay, I hand it over to Ms. Vijaya Ghosh. Over to you, Vijaya.
Thank you so much, Pranjali. I'm very excited to be here. Great to see the participation from across the country and at various levels of usage of AI. In fact, that is very heartening to see that 50% of you are, I mean, not surprisingly, 50% of you are just getting started. Some of them, but what is surprising is, or rather heartening is that some of you have already scaled some of the selected AI solutions, 20%, which is a good number, I would say. And then, of course, the rest of you are piloting, dipping your toes in the water and piloting a few use cases. But it is good to know that this is the state and not very different, I would say, across the world as well. CPG, I mean, of course, there are some industries which have taken AI head on, whereas there are others which are doing a little bit of wait and watch. And I think CPG or FMCG is one of those industries which is actually still looking at it. Some of the processes are still being run with completely human effort, while there are some processes which actually AI has been able to intervene in. So if we can move on to the next slide. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, this is a very famous advertisement in India, which is about buying surf, which is talking about Samajhdari. But the fact is that using AI is the samajhdari today, because the point is, I mean, there is an oft repeated quote of the ex-IBM CEO, Ginny Rometty, which says that uh, humans will not be replaced by AI, but humans who do not use AI will be replaced. So therefore it is about, so therefore it's better for us to actually embrace AI. AI is here to stay. It is out of the box. The Pandora's box has been opened. Now it is everywhere, in right from your mobiles to your phones to every conceivable area, device that you use has the built-in capability to help you with LLMs and AIs. And there are these big tech companies which are having a battle among themselves to give you the best AI in your hands. And therefore, there is no point fighting it. It is actually better for you to embrace it and to do your job better. Let's move on to the next. So this is what we're going to discuss today. So I think I see AI more like a jugalbandi, and that is the reason why I thought this picture of the Taj, the famous Taj advertisement, is very evocative, because let it be you and the AI working in tandem or in jugalbandi to create wonderful music or melody. So we're going to discuss what is an AI-ready FMCG enterprise. What does that mean? What are the challenges and opportunity? What are the what how does AI get implemented across the value chain, and some of the use cases? Some of you have already started exploring that. Some of you have already done pilots there. Some of you are scaling the solutions. And then let's look at what are the global best practices and benchmarks. And the biggest pain point that everybody talks about when we implementing AI is the data part, and therefore how do we build data maturity, and what is the path to actually AI readiness. So that's what we will cover in the next 30, 40 minutes. And feel free to actually keep adding your questions on the chat window, which I will take at the end of the session. Can we move on to the next? Yeah. So now the question is, what is an AI FMCG enterprise? If you look at it, an AI-ready FMCG enterprise is one where there is data-driven decision making embedded across all functions. Now, some of you have said that some of the solutions are getting scaled, which means that there are some functions which have been more open to actually using AI. And so it was, I've been in this field for last 2 decades. A lot of it initially was getting the data together, cleaning it, and this whole journey that you did: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive. But today it is generative. So it has moved to actually being able to generate new text, new images, new videos. So something completely new can also be generated using the patterns that the data sees, and that's how AI, what we call AI. So the data science evolved into AI. So therefore, if this is embedded across, so this data-driven decision making is embedded across all functions, then you would call yourself AI ready. If you are agile, adaptive, have predictive capabilities. Now, this was something that most of us I mean, the world actually had a wake up call, right? I mean, when we had when we had COVID, and overnight, actually, you had to actually reinvent your supply chain to that extent, because there were some providers that you were not able to. So this whole globalization has now become a localization, because now you need to have the strategy to have both global suppliers as well as local suppliers. And also what happens in terms of and we all know in COVID there was a lot of pantry stocking, etc. So you had to actually change your manufacturing line to actually rush in the bigger packs, the twin packs, the bigger packs, and all those, because the buying pattern had changed. And then it moved online. In fact, most of it today, thanks to COVID, actually there was an accelerated online acceptance across India, and which we still till date see. And some of the consumer behavior which has changed to online continues to be so. And a lot also, therefore your supply chain has to be agile and adaptive, We do not know when the next black swan event is going to happen. And then the integrated, and you need to have integrated digital infrastructure across sales, marketing, logistics. And I think that is something that that is still actually in pockets. In many cases you see there are actually handheld devices that people have started using. There is marketing which has actually gone through a sea change, and thanks to generative AI, you see a lot of more creatives actually being done through AI, and some of them with different degrees of success, of course. And then this whole control tower thing, which is where you're able to see where your goods are at any given point in time, and being able to manage that. And this integrated digital infrastructure called sales, marketing, and logistics is what you would call an AI ready FMCG. And then of course the workforce, I mean, you have to be open to actually AI collaboration and interpretation. And this is a cultural change and shift that we are talking, where people are all open and embrace AI. They look at they you have credible data, and that continues to be a challenge. In my 2 decades of work, I have seen continued challenge coming on the area of credibility of data. Each function has its own view of sales. Each function has its own view of targets and forecasts, etc. And while each one of them are doing things, but then they are all doing it in a siloed way. So that single source of truth is something that we have to work towards. And for the workforce to be able to actually be talented, to actually be able to use all this. And that is, I think, a very key element, an AI ready of an AI ready FMCG company, where there is culturally a big shift towards embracing AI on a day-to-day basis. So that's what an AI ready FMCG enterprise stands for. All right. We can look at the next slide, and maybe Pranjali, you wanted to actually look at also. Is there a question that you would like to ask the audience?
Yes, yes, for sure. So we'll take a small pause here as now it's time for another interactive poll, which is on your screen now. What is the biggest challenge your FMCG organization faces in adopting AI? I would request everyone to please participate. There's a lot of active participation in the poll. I request all the other participants also to please fill in their responses so that we can tailor our webinar and future programs accordingly. And last 10 seconds, and we'll be closing this poll. Thank you everyone for participating. Over to you, Vijaya.
Yeah, so I see that unclear ROI or business case actually is the top. I mean, and very quickly there is also lack of data maturity. And I think these are all good, the kind of responses that we see across all clients. And I think and that is where actually, when we are looking at an AI ready FMCG enterprise, that's the first thing that we need to look at. And if you look at what are the challenges, typically if you see the arms in the ghee, the challenges are data fragmentation across channels, because as I was saying, that different functions have different views of sales, of costs, etc. So therefore that data, so there is data fragmentation across channels. The second, of course, as most of you pointed out as well, there is a talent and skill gap. Then there is silo. So as some of you were saying, that you have scaled some of the AI use cases, but then if you look at it, they're all siloed innovation effort. There is definitely an innovation that is happening, but in separate pockets. And therefore the whole idea of ROI, that is where it becomes a problem, because at the end of the day they had to work in a symphony. It has to be something that works in tandem. That's when you will actually realize the full ROI, because one effort alone is not going to give you that impact. And then, of course, many of us are struggling with legacy systems and infrastructure which are not suited to actually implementation of AI. In many cases, the biggest challenge that we see is in terms of data storage, data processing, etc., which is what actually inhibiting your accelerated or your acceptance and implementation of AI across the organization. And if you think about it, so therefore, what are the opportunities? The opportunities, if you see, are you get real time insights for consumer behavior. And today, consumers are changing so much. Some of the biggest brands are actually, you see, new brands are challenging some of the biggest brands. I mean, if you think about the recent acquisition of Minimalist by Unilever. So Unilever, Hindustan Unilever has been operating some of the biggest brands in skincare in India. But then, if you see a brand like a Minimalist, which is completely online and a small organization, actually was able to, uh, get a lot of mind space from the consumers, and therefore, in fact, Unilever saw the opportunity and actually acquired them. But that's where you have smaller brands now, because most of them online, because of the shift in consumer behavior. There are a lot of new brands which are actually challenging some of the most established brands, and therefore they are asking for that hyper personalized marketing, which is what is the other opportunity that you have if you were to embrace AI, where you can actually do local segment specific advertisements, and then marketing, and in fact, and of course, and all this can only work if you are able to sense the demand, and be your supply chain has to be very agile, your manufacturing systems have to be agile in order to actually respond effectively to the changing consumer needs. And of course, you need to optimize your inventory. And and the new thing is about AI powered product development. And if you look at it, there are a lot of new recipes, etc., especially in the food industry. There is a big shift towards actually doing AI powered product development, and working with in tandem with AI to see what could be the new products that are coming in. In fact, there's a big use case of Mars actually being able to, they actually launched a Maltese cake. So by where you had the cookie and the cake together, and that's how it became a Maltese cake. And that is one of the biggest use cases of or successes of AI powered product development. If we were to move to the next slide, if you see, now this is a little busy slide. These are actually talking about uh, some of the use cases that you can have in each of the areas. I mean, of course, as I was saying, R&D innovation has actually, if you think about it, that has actually gone through a sea change. And that is where AI has been. And if you think about it, most of the industry or the functions which have been a laggard in actually adopting data and data science driven decision making, they have actually been able to leapfrog with AI. And if you see this whole consumer trend analysis, predictive modeling for product success, recipe formulation, and you see a lot of it actually now finding a lot of use and application in the R&D or the innovation space. Then from the manufacturing, again, manufacturing has also been a little bit of very human intensive and engineering driven sort of function. But if you see today, they are the ones again who have leapfrogged, and they're looking at with all these new machinery with IoT devices, etc., coming in. There is real time data that is now available, and therefore using that to do predictive maintenance, using that to do computer vision, actually to do quality control. And also the biggest thing is about optimizing energy in plants. So if you see the two functions which were actually traditionally more human intensive and expertise driven, they have actually leapfrogged using AI. And there are a number of examples and successes of multiple companies which have actually been able to adopt that very successfully. Then, of course, if you look at procurement and sourcing and supply chain operations, now this is where you see most of them have become, I would say, air traffic controllers. Like that, they have these control towers where they are able to then, and in fact, some of the biggest companies, biggest success stories are in being able to real time track your products and where they are doing this supplier risk analytics and real time new data feeds which are coming in, as I said. The biggest wake up call was COVID, and after that, a lot of it has been has and a lot of focus has come into procurement and sourcing using this. And then there is, of course, with the LLMs, with the advent of the LLMs, with the Chat GPT and Gemini's, etc. of the world. And I think the biggest advantage has become in contract analytics. And what used to be a very painstaking process in terms of RFPs and contract realization, and in being able to see any deviations that are happening, especially for multinational companies. I think there's a big use case there of using doing AI based contract analytics. And of course, price forecasting using external data, especially commodity forecasting. And with so many dynamic changes that are happening with wars, etc., also happening across the world, there have been a lot of dynamic changes that have had to be done across contracts, across forecasting of commodities. And I think this is where AI is finding a big use. And of course, as I said, in terms of operations, demand forecasting, and I think demand sensing, that inventory optimization, route planning and logistics. Now this is very, very important from an India context, where which is we have a much spread out market with a lot of local nuances. So therefore, the ability to do route planning and logistics really well, and also being able to do warehouse automation using computer vision and robotics. So these are some of the big use cases that you see on the supply chain and operations side, which have actually revolutionized and made things far easier. And if you look at operations, especially frontline operations, you really don't need a lot of it. Can actually, you can have AI actually come and automate that into what we call intelligent automation, right? It's just not automation, but the fact is that AI is able to, some of those responses, it is able to think and be able to do that effectively. And this is where the ability to use AI has found a lot of application in terms of reinventing the supply chain operations. And then on the other side that I was talking about in terms of sales and marketing, and that is where you see marketing has again, marketing automation had already come in, but now with AI it has been revolutionized. The whole thing of the brief to the creative to launch, etc., this whole cycle time has been significantly reduced using AI. And if you see a lot of localization, of course there is also the naysayers who are saying that, what, many of the AI generated ads are very pedestrian, they're not no longer that aha. But I think what we need to do is actually not use AI only as AI. And I think that is where I would say it's an ineffective use of AI. AI is only a tool in your hands. The human brain still has to be creative, and in fact, that is how I always see AI, only as a co-pilot. AI as the one which is doing the jugalbandi with you, but it has to be you also who is actually then leading the pack, leading the thought, in terms of that is where the creativity happens. But if you think, the execution time has now significantly reduced using AI. And then this whole thing about real time price elasticity and promotion modeling. Now this the revenue growth management area, or net revenue management, this has seen a lot of application using AI, where the ability to actually then in real time, because you're introducing so many SKUs, your competition is reacting, so the ability to actually react very fast across various channels, and having a very personalized channel wise strategy, or even big chain strategy, is a very important thing, especially in the GT market, in various location wise nuances, area wise nuances is what you need to look at. And this is where NRM, AI powered NRM is actually finding a lot of usage. And then, of course, this whole thing about sentiment analysis and brand tracking. Now, consumers more and more are now actually sharing their views online. You have customer reviews which are easily available on the e-commerce platforms. There is so much community building that many of the brands have done, and therefore are able to get that real time feedback from the consumers, and then using that to actually then revise your product strategy, product development strategy, your ability to respond faster, therefore, to consumer complaints and their feedback. And then, of course, as I said, the retail and economic e-commerce, the online boom has actually revolutionized the way consumers shop in India today, and therefore brings in it brings into play the dynamic pricing, shelf optimization, recommendation engines. How do you look at in-store footfall and planogram acquisition, optimization, etc. So all this is where you see AI playing a big role. And the same thing has gone into customer service and engagement. Today, AI chatbots are here to stay, and they are able to provide those real-time support. This, as I said, the AI-driven feedback analysis for your product improvement, and also seeing that how do you look at, especially these are very important. This is very important for D2C. Many of the brands have actually gone the D2C way, and in that, how do you look at the automated customer journey mapping? How can you look at navigating them through your giving them a great experience, a great online customer experience, and being able to navigate and being able to influence that. Now that is also another area where AI has seen a lot of application. And of course, sustainability and ESG. Now more and more, there is more and more conscious consumers are demanding that they actually the brands, the FMCG brands, are the ones who lead the pack in terms of saving the environment. Historically, it is this industry which has actually faced the flack in terms of single use plastic usage, etc. And therefore the ability to actually use AI to optimize water, energy usage, predictive analytics to reduce waste. And in fact, you see more and more brands actually coming up with more eco-friendly packaging. And then this whole thing of how can I have a closed loop where I'm actually you returning plastics, etc. And also having supply chain traceability for ESG compliance. And given that regulations have also become tighter in this space, so therefore the ability to actually use that all this through AI. So this is a broad view if you think about what does AI today impact, and it impacts every single function. And if you can move on to the next slide. But then there is one drawback that you look at when I talk about it as a use case. Can we move to the next slide, please? When I talk about it in the use case, you see what happens. So AI, if you see, can across all functions, it is able to drive efficiency, personalization, and agility. This is what AI brings to the table. And but then if you see, many of you and some of you mentioned at the beginning in the poll itself, you if you look at it more like a siloed effort, one use case here, one pilot here, one use case here, one scale that I do, you will not be able to get the full ROI of AI, because then it is, because you see most of the functions are interdependent. Just because you've got marketing spends optimization in place, but the fact is that the sales also has to be in tandem with that, because that's when it will impact in terms of actual top line growth, right? I mean, top line growth, that otherwise it will just be okay, the spends have been optimized, but then where is the but have we been able to generate new sales? Because that's really what the function of the marketing should be, right? So therefore the greatest ROI will come by integrating these use cases and making it into a cohesive digital strategies rather than those isolated pilots that you're doing. And some of the ROI, now these are from some of the documented cases, whether it is whether it's McKinsey, BCG, or some of those large companies which have been benchmarking. So typically supply chain costs, you can impact it by 15 to 30%. You can have a top line increase of 3 to 5% in revenue with AI driven personalization. You can obviously improve the net promoter score, the customer retention. Forecasting accuracy actually can be improved by as much as 50%. In fact, some of them are going even further. And there is faster time to market for innovation. So these are typically the ROI and the business case that you can make to actually invest in AI. But then, as I said, if you invest in AI only as a single pilot in a small area, in a small function, you will not be able to get the full view of it. It's actually the full value of it comes if we have all the functions enterprise wide, all the functions working in tandem. And that's when you will realize actual value in terms of incremental revenue and in terms of optimized bottom line. We can move to the next slide. So if you see some of the global examples, these are most famous examples of what the companies have been able to achieve with AI. Now, Unilever has a very strong demand sensing and agile marketing decisions platform. They have actually been able to bring this together, and that is where it is the becomes an integrated marketing approach, where you are taking the because the whole idea of taking marketing decisions is to actually be able to improve the increase the overall sales. But that can happen only if you're able to, your supply chain is also working in tandem. Therefore, you need to have strong demand sensing and marketing decisions both working in tandem, and that's what Unilever has been able to do with their integrated marketing, demand sensing and marketing platform. Nestle, if you talk about that, they have actually set up an AI labs for product innovation and sustainability. And Nestle has always been known for its food innovation. Today, whether it is using superfoods or the new foods which are coming into place, or localized, flavors, etc., that's what Nestle has been able to do with their AI labs. P&G has always been known for their supply chain efficiency, and that they have been able to achieve using control towers, which give them real time nudges and real time feedback about the various aspects of supply chain operations, and that's where they are able to be ahead of the game. And if you look at L'Oreal, now L'Oreal is very interesting because what they have done is they have been able to give that personalized skincare, skincare sort of advice online. If you look at, if you go into the L'Oreal website, is actually, and you upload your face, then it is actually able to tell you which are your area attention, then is able to give you personalized recommendations on the kind of products and the usage and the regimen that you need to adopt. So this is the sort of beauty advisor thing which they've been able to do at scale using AI. So these are some of the examples of where some of these companies, and all these are the top FMCG or CPG companies, where they have been able to use AI very effectively and get a lot of reinvent their process and stay ahead of the game. All right. So Pranjali, if you would like
Yeah,
to.
yeah, sure. So we'll take a small pause here as now we'll be having another interactive poll, which is live on your screen now. So, what best describes your organization's data maturity level? I request everyone to please participate. Most of the people have already filled the responses. Last 10 seconds, and we'll be closing the poll. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Over to you, Vijaya.
So it's great to see that that data is accessible and used in some analytics. That is the highest response, which actually is quite good, because because that is the data is the underpinning of anything that you do with AI. Because at the end of the day, the AI is going to look at going to look at the patterns in the data, and that's what it comes with when it's actually giving you the AI models as a result. So therefore, the first thing to do is, and then that's where I felt that this would, you can change, and actually establishing a single source of truth, the master data management, is the most important thing which has to be done, and it has to be something which has to be kept updated all the time, given that there is so much dynamism that is happening, so much of changes in terms of the SKUs that we're bringing into the market, and some of them coming in, going out, and all of it, whether it is in the product, whether it is in the channels, all of it needs to have a good strong master data management, and that is the bedrock or the foundation of it. And then of course you need to invest in cloud data lakes and scalable architecture, which then allow you, when you talk about accessibility of data, if you're allowing data to be accessible, say on iPads, on mobile devices, across all your employees, then you need a very strong cloud infrastructure which is supporting that, and there is a scalable architecture. And then, of course, most important thing is in data governance and compliance. Now, that is something you have to be a hawk there, that you ensure that people are just not changing the data and having their own interpretation of the data. You have to have that strong frameworks and policies in place. And of course, you have to democratize that, and then you ensure, of course, you will have role based access. Not everyone can access everything, but then those are the policies that you need to have, so the data access is something that, because I've seen typically whenever there's a presentation at the end of the year, end of the month, in terms of the general manager, etc., people are scrambling to get data and from the various sources, putting them into presentations to showcase, which should not be the case. It should be that you have those real time dashboards which are available. It is more about the strategy that you discuss, that rather than getting the numbers into place. And then there are continuous data quality checks and audits, because that is what will ensure that your data health is perfect and there is access, role based access, as I said, to all the people in your organization. Can you move on to the next slide? So once you have this in place, then you could do this. The first step is actually the data consolidation and governance. If you have established this, then your battle is already won, because that's where what I see is the most foundation and the bedrock that you need to have. And then on top of it, you have digital infrastructure, and you migrate to cloud, because that's where the processing will be able to processing will be helped. And then you actually look at, of course, some of you have already said that you're already doing pilot AI projects, but key functions. But across key functions, you do some of the key unicorn, identify those unicorn use cases. As I said, the use case that we just discussed, you pick up those use cases which you think will have the most impact for you, and do the pilots in that. The pilots are important because it is a show and tell, right? People will always follow you if they see success, so you have to do a show and tell to tell people the ability of that. But quickly, once you have the show and tell and people get on board and they become interested, you need to look at scaling this enterprise wide, because that's where your scalable architecture, your digital infrastructure, the data governance, data consolidation, all that will help. And then and one is, this is as far as this whole digital aspect of it is concerned. But then the most important aspect is the people aspect as well. So there is process, there is technology that you've been able to impact now with AI, but then unless people adopt it, it's not going to go anywhere. So therefore working in tandem with people in every step, getting them onboarded into AI is the most important step. So that's the glide path that I would say for any AI readiness to be considered. We can move on to the next slide. So if you see, what are the critical enablers here? Number one is leadership commitment. It has to be top down. We have seen that, in many cases, there are a lot of these smart middle management, senior management also coming in with great ideas. But unless you have the CXO support, the board supporting you, in many cases this becomes an exercise in a pilot exercise, which is and in fact, my boss often jokes that there are many CXOs who come and tell him that I have more pilots than Indigo in my company. But then they go nowhere, because these are just smart things that people showcase as show and tell. But then unless it is enterprise wide scaled, you will not see the ROI or the benefits of it. And then you need to have cross functional AI tasks. As I kept on saying, AI is not about actually just implementing in one function and saying, oh, this is supply chain operations is the most successful function. But then the supply chain operation does not work in silo, it is working in tandem. So therefore, if you are able to, if you're using marketing, if you are looking at more responsive supply chain, you need to actually also impact the other functions, the manufacturing functions, the product innovation, the sales and marketing. All of it has to work in tandem. Therefore, cross functional AI task forces. Upskilling and change management, as I kept on saying, is the most important thing. People have to be ready to change that, because in many cases all this will become an exercise in futility if people do not adopt it. And then, of course, most important, you also need to have data and AI governance. Now, this is a very important aspect. What do you use AI for? which what is your policy, how do you use it responsibly, and also in terms of data governance, that there are not people who can actually go and manipulate. Just because you're democratizing data access, you should not allow, you should have checks and balances in place to ensure that it is not manipulated, changed, etc. And then you need to obviously, for doing all this initially, any FMCG organization, while you can have your own team actually working on it, but a good thing to jumpstart all this process is to have partnerships with AI vendors or startups. And of course, you need to constantly look at monitoring ROI and KPI. So this is what will enable you to actually execute the vision for AI. So there is a strategy that you have, and then this is how what would enable the execution. And if we can move on to the last slide. So my point is that, AI is already there. The Pandora box is open. It is now available in all our phones, in all the devices, everywhere. So it is not a future bet. It is now, and it is and unless you do it, if you are not doing it, somebody else will, and those who are doing it will win. And if you see, is the same thing that if you look at it some 20 years back, when computers were personal computing was coming in, right? So all those who did not adopt the automation, did not adopt computers, were left on the wayside, but use computers to actually, but then computers came in and revolutionized the way we work. And that's what AI is today. It is AI is at that cusp. And as most importantly, for any success to happen, AI has to align with your business goals. And you can begin with small wins. As I said, success begets success. I mean, so if you have these small wins, that's when everybody else will be excited, because if you do some big bang and you fail, it's going to demotivate everyone. So therefore, begin with these small wins, but quickly scale it with governance, and that is when you will realize the ROI or the true impact of AI. So that is how I would like to conclude my today's session, and I'm now open to questions.
Thank you, Vijaya. Thank you for an enlightening session and for sharing those valuable insights with us. But before we move on to the questions, so there is one last interactive poll that will be live on your screen now. So I request everyone to please participate. Which AI technologies are you exploring or already using? Most of the people have already filled the responses. I request others also to please participate. Last 10 seconds and we'll close the poll.
It's actually fantastic to see that, bulk of it is actually predictive analytics, which is very good, because that's where you would get, because that's what it is. I mean, of course, descriptive diagnostic are important for you to know where the situation is, but to be able to impact the future, you would need predictive analytics. And it's good to see people have been making for computer vision, NLP, RPA, etc. These are also, as I said, the functions like manufacturing, etc. They've actually taken a lot of leapfrog. And of course, with NLP coming in, this whole customer interactions have become very, very intelligent, and the customer experience too. So I think a lot of good things. It's good to see people already exploring into all these things. But as I said, it's a show and tell. Show your small wins, but also scale it quickly for you to actually be able to get significant ROI. All right, Pranjali, now I'm open to
Yeah,
questions.
yeah. So in case of any query, please post your questions in the chat box and we'll address them. So we already have two questions in the question section. So I'll read it out. How do we assess AI maturity within an FMCG enterprise? Are there specific frameworks or benchmarks we need to follow?
There are a lot of frameworks which are available when it comes to data maturity. As I said, you look at data maturity and AI maturity. Typically you would look at data maturity to say, is it siloed? I mean, there are if you see a lot of if you search on the internet also, each company of course has their own way of evaluating it. A lot of consulting companies have good frameworks for it to do, but if you for doing this, but if you see, typically it is whether it is siloed, whether it is whether it is democratized, whether it is enterprise wide. So that would be a sort of way. And then in terms of are you capturing real time data, or is it what kind of data that you have available? So therefore this is one way to look at the data maturity. And on top of it, typically for a data driven decision making, you always look at the glide path, as I was saying, descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive, and you do that across for all functions and to see, and that's where you would sort of give a score and a rating for all this. So a lot of good frameworks are already available on the internet, and I would recommend that you use them, both from a data perspective as well as on the ability to use AI on top of it. So if you can look at the glide path, you can overlay both data maturity as well as the AI maturity, and that's when, and you probably can give a score, and you do a uniform way of looking at. And when some of them, Gartner also has it, many of them have already got such frameworks. You may want to use that to see. I wouldn't say that it is specifically tailor made only to FMCG organizations. It is across industry, but I think across industry framework also works. But if you look at benchmarks, in most cases, if you see, I mean, as I was saying, for CPG, I mean, versus say, in India, if you look at it, some of the industries which are fairly advanced in AI are something like banking, financial services, and especially fintech and all that. They are fairly advanced. Then you all the digital native companies, they're also fairly advanced, right? I mean, because they were able to set up their systems already with that in mind, because data and AI had already come in, unlike some of the older FMCG companies which are struggling with a lot of legacy systems as well. And so if you look at it, you can benchmark them yourself against these, and especially even sectors like oil and gas, they have been actually fairly quick to frog as well, and they are also adopting AI in a big way. But among FMCG, some of the companies that I already mentioned, they are among the top, the Unilevers, the P&G, and Nestle's of the world are actually, you can look at benchmarking yourself against them as well.
Okay, so there's another question which is related to the AI use case in FMCG. Most of the demand planning tool have built-in AI capabilities of demand sensing. Has Unilever deployed something over and above these tools?
In most cases, if you look at, most of the companies actually customize to their requirements. And in fact, most of the out of the box sort of capabilities that you get in many of the tools do not take into account some of the nuances that are specific to that company. And Unilever is very big on that. They have so many nuances that they typically ensure that they bring in customization, so that they are able to get better benefit out of it. So hope that
Okay,
answers.
so we have a question from Shivani Rathi. Are there any specific AI tools for the specified things like generating forms, quality control?
There are no specific AI tools as such. I mean, there are a lot of them today which are able to do that. I mean, you could use your pick in any of these, LLMs, where where you can look at generating forms, etc. And I think it's better that you look at your enterprise working with them to actually look at your own sort of private LLM that you can set up for your company, which you can look at that. Quality control, typically it would be computer vision systems which will have to be defined. There are some of them, some tools which are already available, but there are a number of companies which are able to provide you with this. And if you look at it, a lot of it is also custom defined, codes which are written in Python, etc. So you can look at some of these LLMs and some of the computer vision systems for the quality control area.
Okay, another question. What is the source of statistics on ROI shared here in the deck, enhanced forecasting accuracy by 50%, etc.? And is this the boundary or mean or median?
See, as I said, these are coming from various sources. Typically, many of the consulting firms they put out, like a McKinsey or a BCG, they put out some of their studies on the kind of ROI they have been able to achieve. So it is more that, and I would say it is more a median here that we are looking at. On an average, many of the companies have been able to achieve 50%. Those who have set up a demand forecasting or a demand sensing sort of who have implemented that at an enterprise scale have been able to see this kind of improvement. All right.
Okay, so I believe that's all. So before we wrap up, thank you, Vijaya, for addressing all the questions. And thank you, everyone, for your participation as well. So, before we wrap up, we'd like to invite you to share your feedback as a short video message. If you're open to it, we'll enable your mic and camera and record your response. And it'll just take a minute and help us improve our future sessions. So, you just have to simply raise your hand, or you can drop a message also in the chat, and we'll bring you live for a quick interaction. Also, I request the interested participants to please hold on for a few minutes so that we can record your valuable feedback. So, this webinar was part of CT Cyber Charcha series that brings you unbiased, brand agnostic insights on transformative IT topics with leading industry experts. So, with this, we end our today's session. I would like to extend my gratitude to Ms. Vijaya Ghosh for taking out time from her busy schedule to grace the session. And I must thank all the participants for their participation. We look forward to welcoming you to future sessions of CT Cyber Charcha. Until then, stay curious and stay connected. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.